and provide opportunities for ladies and also for men. And so then when you look at the career opportunities, the maritime sector is very rich. So rich that sometimes we wonder what went wrong. Because when we started, we're telling engineers, structural engineers, and all the other cadres of economy in terms of development capacity, but we forgot the maritime sector. And yet, the maritime sector is very rich, that if you put people there, a total of 87 different careers will be generated. And so that calls for serious work. And so then, this serious work is shown on the extent of the diversity of engagement with the maritime sector. I've just sampled Kenya and the region, the Indian Ocean region. And I wish to share with you that even we as a country, in terms of diversity of the various clusters within the maritime sector, we are not doing well. If you can see those figures, we are sharing the 20% of the region's blue economy activities. And the 90% of that is for the tourism, coming from the tourism, which means the other different clusters, about 13 or 15 of them within the maritime sector, we are yet to diversify and get into that. So talking of an economy, the maritime sector is very rich. We are pointing out less diversity. What does that mean? An idea here. An idea means money. So if you are of the 90% of still in tourism, which means the other 15 or so different clusters within the maritime sector, portraying those various 87 different skills, there are still fallow land which has not been plowed. And when it is fallow, you don't even need fertilizers. You just throw your beans, and the beans that just grow what? Naturally. So within the maritime sector, we are saying diversification is still low in Kenya, in Africa, and many other places. For countries with different colors, I can see Madagascar has different colors, which means they have diversified. It's not just tourism, but it's shipbuilding, it's many other classes within the blue economy space. So then, that means there are opportunities in Kenya, in Africa, and across the globe. So long as we can build those capacities that I talked about. If you have the right skills, they'll be able to know what it is that is there in the waters, and they bring out the engagement with the sector so that their specific career skills can come out very clearly. And that's what the maritime sector is. So then, we in the Maritime Authority, Kenya Maritime Authority is the administration, the maritime administration for this country. We do the coordination, regulation, and oversight of maritime affairs. Specifically, we deal with the safety. That's a major work that we do. We deal with the marine pollution, particularly from ships. We deal with the training of maritime training and education. That's another area. Search and rescue is also within our docket. Plus commercial maritime activities in terms of the standards and the quality and the availability of the various maritime transport services. That's our major areas that we deal with. But more so, we have come in to the element of collaborating the various classes within the maritime economy so that we can move together as a sector in terms of forming our roles as a maritime administration. So, more specifically on the capacity building, the first one, quality of maritime education and training. This is an area that we focus on. This one does not discriminate. For you to qualify, whether you are a lady or a man, you have to meet those standards, which have been set mainly by IMO for the seafarer training programs. So we have to ensure that institutions which are allowed to train have the capacities, the resources, and the infrastructure to be able to train people who can qualify and work on board ships. Then we also register the seafarers. Once you have seen these careers in the maritime sector and you become a seafarer, we'll register you. And we deal also with the welfare in terms of how you are treated at your place of employment on board a ship, the conditions. We make sure that you eat oranges and mangoes and guavas when you're on board a ship. Because if you don't eat that one, it becomes a very unhappy ship. And so when you come on board or ashore, you whisper to us quietly, how is the diet? How is the sleeping quarters? Is it okay? And when you notice there's a problem, we come in to make sure that your working environment is safe. And that's what IMO also recommends. And we want ship owners to be able to pick it up as a culture. So we deal with their welfare. When there is salary problems, we also come in and help you to make sure that you get your salary. When you go on board a ship, we help you with the negotiation so that you don't just walk in anyhow. Should you have a problem, then we have specific contract that you can fall back to make sure that once you're employed, you are not mistreated. And that is an area that we deal with. We deal the established capacity we establish and support capacity building scheme for the maritime training. And this particular one, we have moved and we have seen a lot of improvements. Right from the beginning, when we didn't have any curriculum in the country, we went ahead and developed the curriculum. We picked up the IMO experts, they guided us, and today we can talk of curriculum from the artisanal level all the way to university level for the marine engineers and the pilots. And the STCW programs we are running in line, we got audited by IMO in terms of compliance with those particular standards. And then next week, we are going through a very serious audit on STCW. And thereafter, by the end of June, we are also inviting, under the IMSAS audit, a team of independent observers just to come and see how our systems are working. Because IMO has put it that if you don't qualify, if you don't have the administrative, if you don't have the structure, you are not allowed to run. And that's why they talk of whitelist and not whitelist. We are in the whitelist, and we expect audit at the end of June. So many of the times we are on our toes just to make sure that we pass the audit. We look forward, pray for us that all goes well. By the end of June, we'll pass through. I can see my colleagues are here. They are in charge of this particular audit program, and I hope we'll make it up. So then, the standard has been made. In terms of maritime resource person facility and structure, I've talked about that. You have to make sure that the institution that you vet and allow to train has got the proper skill set and the resource persons to be able to provide the training programs. And then participation of women in the maritime sector. This is an area that was picked by PS when she came in, not just because she's a lady, but she found it very important to talk about incorporating ladies and bringing ladies together. And so the origin of UMESA, she led a lot in terms of initiating it. And the Secretariat for UMESA has remained in KMA. And we fully support you and we really appreciate. I also want to appreciate IMO for recognizing this and creating a day, International Day for Women, and supporting us also in this particular program that we are having today so that the ladies can be brought together to talk about this. Our intention is to position the country as a provider of the seafarers and the human resource capacities, not just for the seafarers, but also in the logistics. And those are the careers that we talked about, so that we can be able to do something for the globe, not just Kenya, but the globe. So our aspirations in terms of governing the maritime sector as KMA is to ensure that there is sustainability, to also ensure that there is collaboration. And collaboration, we have pursued collaboration in very many areas. Because we notice that within the maritime sector, there are several agencies and several policies and several institutions, and they work in silos. So what we are trying to do at the moment is to bring them together to identify what is it that we need for the sector to grow, and then how can we come up with a structure that can see us moving together so that you can realize what the blue economy is all about. We did it here. Kisumu is a practical example where we called all the parties, plus the counties and the various agencies, and we have set up what we are calling a multi-agency 5-year blue economy initiatives, program for the blue economy action plan for the blue economy initiatives, with programs, with monitoring and evaluation, and regular meetings, so that at the offset, we just want to see what is it that the various agencies in the blue economy are doing, and how can we be able to bring them together to identify priority areas and focus on that. We are doing it now for the blue economy. We have done it for the Mombasa Port and Community Charter, where we bring the various performance to be able to identify and set up targets. And the good news that we have brought in gender within the Mombasa Port and Community Charter. It's going to be launched. Was it launched yesterday? It's going to be launched today. We are going to launch a subcommittee of the Mombasa Port and Community and Northern Corridor Community Charter of gender, the women. They have a role to play in the efficiency of logistics within our corridor. This charter has got the monitoring and evaluation subcommittee, it's got the ICT, it has got the communications, and now we create another subcommittee just purely for the ladies to see to what extent can they smoothen up smoothen up that process of the flow of cargo. Where you have the ladies, the cargo flows very, very smoothly. And we look forward to that, the launch of the event, so that we can attain the kind of efficiency that we need in this country. So collaboration is a very essential aspiration within the KMA. And then the next one is economic and social inclusivity. And this is where the gender is coming in. It doesn't make sense to anybody if Adhiambo is here and she's told you how the fish is good, but she doesn't see the bigger picture of how she fits in into this big conference talks. So unless you transfer the conversations from here to the people down here, then it doesn't make sense. And that is what we need to find. How do we make it possible for the communities living around the water to be the richest among the societies in the various countries? If you're lucky to have water, you should be very rich. And that is not the case. So inclusivity is very important. Again, the promotion of traditional and emerging sectors, like I've told you, there are 15 clusters within the maritime, and we are only a couple of them. And the traditional ones, like fishing, shipping, that is transport, those have been promoted. But there are also the new ones that generate those 87 different careers. We need to identify and find how it comes out. And so therefore, research and development has to be a major component of bringing that one out. But as we do all these ones, of course, the water is a very good place, but it's not very friendly. It can kill you. It kills us every day. You hear from outside there. So it must be safe. So the element of safety is very, very critical in our operations, both in the inland waters and down in Mombasa. And security, of course, you can't do business without security. So that's a major area that we are dealing with. So social, go back again, Kidogo. So social, environment, sustainability, and economy, all these we put it together, and they form our governance aspirations within the maritime sector. If we can accomplish this, then we are home and dry. Okay, just go ahead. The next one is we happen to be very appreciative of the government because there is a lot of policy support since we started the conversation in 2014 by holding an inaugural maritime conference, and thereafter we talked and brought the issues and brought the politicians to look at things, and then we came up to the Lake Region Economy Block Blue Economy, and then the Sustainable Global Blue Economy. Very brilliant, good ideas, and we're able to see how they are doing. And now the Portugal is coming up, Blue Economy. There was another Blue Economy in Stockholm, and many other Blue Economies. Everywhere blue, you see? So all these initiatives have brought to the attention of the policy, and we are very happy that we are getting a very good government support. This supports after the conference and the various conferences. It has brought the fact home that you can never do anything within the blue economy space until you have an integrated platform of managing it. So there is a national coordination. The office is picking up slowly, but it's moving. You may not feel it on the ground as much, but it's moving because we are the arms and the legs of that particular coordination office called Tobeo. The Blue Economy Office is domiciled in the President's office. And so that element of national coordination is coming in. And we have seen a number of programs implemented since 2014, 2018, following those conferences. And now shipping and fishing, shipping and fishing. Sorry, those are words. They are moving. This is where we have a lot of programs going on. A lot of programs in fishing and shipping. And the launch of the various outcomes of those engagements are going on. And so we see a lot of support in terms of education. And all this cannot be possible unless you have the capacities to train. And you can see the head of state being trained there to become a marine pilot. You can see he was in a classroom, as you can see there. I hope he has qualified. Christine will tell us to become a marine pilot. So without this policy support, it becomes very difficult to make ends meet. And so then we are moving on. And so then we have a specific aspiration for women, entry of women in the maritime sector. So in line with the International Maritime Day for Women in Maritime, we as KMA, we have come up with a specific initiative. The objective of this initiative is to have qualified. About, 7 is a full number. You can't see it very clearly, but you'll see it in the presentations. So 7 is a full number. When it is 7, it's complete. So the first one is qualify experts in the maritime sector. I can't read. Sorry, I forgot my eyes. I can see the picture, But believe me, they are 7. The numbers are visible. And when you get the presentation, you'll read them. But the key thing is focusing on how do we bring out the very best of talents that we have in women in the maritime sector. How do we develop them? Then how do we give them support? Through the initiatives, like we have the HELB is Higher Education Loans Board, where we are putting specific monies to support training in the maritime sector. And we have collaboration with IMO is here. We'll call upon you to give us very specific support addressing women. So with all these initiatives, we look forward to having equal partnership within the maritime sector, with them holding offices. Already Kenya, the highest policy organ in the maritime sector is none other than Nancy Karegitu, who is a lady. So Kenya is demonstrating that it is possible. We want to see a lot of senior ladies coming to the maritime sector, and they have done a commendable job. We have the last one. We have some of our own. Christian, I've taken your picture, and it is there on the wall. Christian recently qualified, Class 1 Marine Engineer. Excellent. As an initiative that was started many years back, we took graduates, mechatronics, mechanical engineers, and transformed them. Until now, we have Christine, so delivery of the first lady who was qualified as marine engineers. We also have others who are going to be qualified as pilots. Irene is there. We have Dorothy is also there. These are the initiatives that we took during when you were just very new, and we can see they are paying dividends. It was a total of about 18 trainees that we picked up. So far we have about 5 or 6 of them have fully qualified, and we like the initiative that has come up thanks to Madam Nancy. She's very passionate about the policy people picking up issues within the maritime sector. Until now we have a training program, and the ships will be available through the cooperation that we have with the Container Shipping Company. They are ready to train our people, and within a span of 1 year, if all goes well, and they have been going well, we thank God, we'll be having a lot of ladies on board and we'll be able to move. Otherwise, sorry, it has been a very, very hasty presentation, but you got the gist of what we do as Kenya Maritime Authority. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mingo, for that lively presentation. I believe all of you now know what Kenya Maritime Authority does, including our visitors. So we will proceed to the next session, which is the panel discussion on the presentations that have been made by Kenya Maritime Authority, MTCC. I think I would kindly like to request Lydia and Mr. Mingo to just come to the podium. Then we can start taking questions as I summarize what we have been discussing. As they come to the podium, we'd like to recognize the presence of the chair lady of one of the beach management units in Kisumu Asset, Ms. Teresa Onyongo Alo. Kindly stand up. Yes, just come and say hi. We're honored to be in Kisumu, so these are some of our stakeholders, the beach management units, the fisher folk. Karibu.
Good afternoon, or it is good morning. Good afternoon. Morning. Thank you. My name is Teresa Lo, as she said. I come from Seme Sub-County, a beach known as Asat Beach. There and the chair lady. Kule zamani walikuwa wanasema wanawake hawawezi kuwa machairs. Siku hizi tuko na wanawake wa chairs. And in Kisumu County we have 35 beaches, and I'm the only lady who is the chair lady. Simnipigie tu makofi. Thank you so much. If you come up to Kisumu County, I'm the Assistant Secretary. There in Asat, tunavua omena, Ukija pale utapata tilapia and even Nile perch. Sasa tunaenjoy kwa hizo masamaki, na nimesikia ile ametoka hapa akisema injili ibirie kule chini. Wavuvi wako na tabia ya hand to mouth, hawajui kusave, na nafikiria wakifunzwa watakuwa mamillionaires. Nimeshukuru sana the young lady akizungumza kwa Dinga, na hata hapo pia nimechukua point. Sitasema mengi, nimeshukuru kwa IMO na nimefurahi nikiwa hapa sababu ninasoma mengi. Asanteni kwa hayo.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that translation. She has thanked IMO for the support, and she says that she is glad that Kenya Maritime Authority is here to also educate them on the opportunities available in the blue economy sector, and going forward, they welcome partnerships to empower them on financial literacy and support towards their businesses. Yeah. Okay. So we had, for this morning session, we had presentations from MTCC, Maritime Technology Cooperation Center, done by Ms. Lydia. Her presentation focused on the role of MTCC and climate change issues, where she was able to present what exactly they do as MTCC and the outcomes of some of the programs they carry out, and the collaboration, since MTCCs are global and run through the IMO. We then had Mr. Omingo, who has extensively covered the role of Kenya Maritime Authority in capacity building. Some of the roles include curriculum development for the Kenyan institutions, where they also oversight courses such as STCW as far as curriculum development is concerned. They also have a support and capacity building scheme where they work with various institutions and government departments in order to look at the programs that they can spearhead as far as educating the stakeholders in the maritime and the blue economy sectors. As far as governance is concerned, he let us know what they do in terms of sustainability and collaboration. One of the key projects, or one of the key outcomes that basically they use in terms of governance, is the Mombasa Port and Northern Corridor Chapter, which brings about I think over 15 institutions, the government agencies and the private stakeholders who use the Port of Mombasa, and they have certain metrics where they're able to measure in terms of turnaround time, in terms of efficiency, just to ensure that there is trade facilitation and each person plays their role. One of the subcommittees under the MPNCC charter is the Gender Subcommittee, which will be launched tonight. I think you will hear more about this in the evening in our gala dinner, which now we have a tool to ensure that then the women in maritime deliverables are able to be achieved through the various policy organs. In terms of support to the Blue Economy Agenda Initiative, Mr. Omingo has presented to us what they do as far as coordination and basically conferences. For example, the Blue Economy conferences that are being organized across the country with various stakeholders, where they're able to basically steer the agenda as far as the blue economy is concerned. Career paths, he has presented to us the challenges that exist. For example, discrimination as far as women in maritime, in terms of the opportunities being availed, the lack of advancement and growth to those who are in that field, particularly the women, the lack of access to opportunities, and he also mentioned that we have about 350 million jobs in the blue economy sector, and women make up quite a low number. And I think we remember the conversation from yesterday, the 2% where we say we have 2% of women being seafarers. And I remember ITF representative Betty, the conversation about data. Even in this 2%, can we classify, are we able to tell how many, what percentage or what numbers are we looking at in terms of women of color? What professions? Can we professionalize? Can we have data that classifies what exactly are the professions under the maritime or the blue economy, so that we have exact figures? So this brings us back to the issue of having statistics and data. So I think the issues of research. So research is coming out as quite a key point that we as women, we need to carry out research. I think Dr. Jacqueline Uku gave us quite a good presentation on how they carry out research, and she suggested a number of way forwards as far as us organizing ourselves as women and conducting research in comparison to what they do as the WIOMSA. So basically that's a summary of what we have been discussing today. So I would like to open up the floor for the panel discussion, feedback, contributions. We have Mr. Omingo and Lydia on the stage. And we also have, of course, our panelists, some of them from yesterday in the IMO. They'll be glad to take your questions. So can we have the other microphone going round? Kindly raise your hand so that we can be able to. Yeah, before we do that, Mr. William Azu has something to say.
Thanks very much, Madam Moderator, and thanks to Mr. Wingo for the latest presentation. Just a quick one. We've noticed the giant strides KMA has been making in recent times, particularly in your dedicated program for women in maritime. This is to be noted and appreciated. Moving forward, part of the enabling environment to train the upcoming one is the availability of vessels, training vessels for sea time. And I know that the Kenya National Shipping Line will be formally inaugurated at the end of this month, if my information is correct. Are there any opportunities to buy training vessels so that KMA may be able to benefit from such investments for onboard sea time for the cadets? I was discussing with one of the young engineers behind me earlier this morning about such opportunities, and we discussed the P&O issues in the UK. So we brought it further back home to see what we can do nationally to enable our women take part in sea time. So, do you have any information, any likelihood that vessels are coming? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Azu. I thought there were 2, 3, but it's okay. I can respond to that one. This is manifesting itself practically. We did an interview to take in marine engineers, and we had to interview 75-year-old when we started around 2013, 14 there, because we didn't have. We did interviews last week, and we had several of them coming up to be able to try their luck for the jobs that we advertised. And some of them was the initiative that was started way back in 2012. So we see improvements taking place. As we speak, there are qualified marine engineers theoretically who are missing the sea time training. So in short, we have engaged shipping lines to get the slots for some of the trainees for the sea time. And the bigger thing that we foresee is simply the arrangement that we are having with the private shipping companies. The South Africans tried and they bought a training vessel, but it didn't stay for long because it takes so much money on a daily basis to keep a vessel running. And so if you take a vessel for training, you have to, the exchequer has to release serious money to maintain it, and that becomes not very economical. What we foresee, you have a training vessel that doubles as a commercial vessel, so the business can retain. So the intention is to have KNSL revived. They link up with the international global carrier. They bring in 2-3 ships to join the fleet, and the initial stage is to focus on around Africa service, so that Mombasa becomes a hub port and they can be able to distribute within these ships. With the plans that we foresee ahead are the training slots. So this will give us opportunities to be able to have
currently we have qualified marine engineers who are yet to get placements on board the vessels for sea time experience. And this is a major problem, not just for Kenya, but globally, and more so for Africa. So through this initiative that is coming up, we foresee, because the initial stages of starting that initiative, we saw some Kenyans who had no slot, getting slots into some of the ships, and they have qualified. And this is the way forward. Get a ship that can do business, maintain itself, but provide slots. And as we continue talking with the shipping lines on a goodwill basis, to be taking some of our trainees on board to be able to do that. But buying purely for training, it has been experimented, is very expensive. Even Nigerians tried, but I don't know how they are faring on now. It's very, very expensive. It has to run the commercial aspect and take in trainees on board, and that's what can be sustainable, and we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olingo, for that clarification. Okay, we have some hands at the back. Maybe we can take.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one is for KMA. I'm from Uganda. We have. Okay, let me give the background to my question. I work for the Ministry of Transport, and our offices are across the immigration office. So every morning you find scores of women waiting to get passports. So Uganda has become very big on exporting domestic labor. So my question for Kenya is, in your presentation you talked about a deliberate effort to provide capacity in order to export maritime labor. So what would be your advice for a young and growing maritime administration like Uganda on how to go about this? I don't know if Ambassador Madam Nancy is around. She could also weigh in on policy issues to do with exporting maritime labor. The other question goes to Ms. Lydia. How does a land-linked country like Uganda join the conversation for climate mitigation, especially when it comes to our inland water bodies? Last year we had unprecedented levels, rising water levels in the lake. It's really affected the maritime community and the shipping community. So how do we join this conversation? Thank you.
Okay, can we take one more and then we get back? We have, yeah. Okay.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Lydia. Ms. Figao from Seychelles. I have just one question or two. In line, like we're talking about mitigation of climate change to shipping, as we know, like the IMO, especially the MAPO Convention, we're placing a lot of emphasis now lately with air pollution, and also its role for member states, especially flag state, for its implementation. We know for the issue for replacing the usual like sulfur to something technology, like small, to be honest, like small island states like Seychelles, when we try to talk about financing this new technology, this is really a challenge itself for implementation. Some of small island states, if we can say, even for the implementation of the convention is an issue, and also in line with the IMO for the implementation of the for the MAPO, the technology to address sulfur dioxide is a key issue. So what advice you give for member states? And the second question, if I may ask, we know we have been talking a lot about protection of the ocean, as well small island developing country and the sustainable development at international, regional level. So even though nowadays we're talking about like mitigation of climate change to shipping, so even at national level there's issue of like how we're going to deal with climate change, especially from pollution from shipping. to bring this as a matter of national concern to the table to government. So what also is the key advice you can also can be given? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Betty. Okay, mine is for, it's not a question, but it's for KMA. Kenya Maritime. We know, I don't know if my sister, she had asked from Uganda. We now get a lot of students doing STCW in Bandari Maritime Academy in Mombasa. They can get the certificates there, but they can't get the seaman book. Can you assist Uganda authority to come up with a seaman book? Because they are supposed to go on board the cruise ship, but they have to wait for a long time for the cruise ship to do the Panama book for them to board the vessel, because they don't have a seaman book, because they don't produce. You have? Okay. She's telling me they have now. Thank you. Yeah, because we have so many Ugandans, they're still here to join the vessels, but they don't know where to get. So she's telling me behind here that they have now. And thank you, Kenya Maritime, for that good job. Thank you. Thank you. One more? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. My question, or rather my request, is to Mr. Omingo. Thank you for sharing a successful story. I heard that you said you've been successful in convincing 18 students, university students, to join the maritime studies. I would like you to give more details of how you have been successful in convincing these students. Recently, I think 1 week back, I met some lecturers from the university who worked on some program on maritime studies, because there's this emerging opportunities for maritime sector. But unfortunately, no one presented for these studies. So I just want to know how you have been able to convince these students. Have you provided some kind of fellowship, sponsorship, something like that, to promote them, to convince them, okay, you can join in? So I would like to hear the story. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can get the responses before we take it back. Maybe we can start with Lydia.
Thank you very much, Mwanaulu, and thank you very much for the questions that have been highlighted. I will embark on the first question, which I think came from Uganda. Correct. With regard to the landlocked countries, I will trace it back and highlight that with regard to the landlocked countries, we have the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea definitely does put consideration for the landlocked countries. And Uganda is part of the International Maritime Organization as a member state. Therefore, they are definitely in the line of having the privileges that have been highlighted in the convention, as well as the convention of the IMO. Directly related to how they can be of benefit to the MTCC Africa activities, we have a number of landlocked countries which are part of our focal point consideration. For example, we have Malawi, and they have been playing such a significant role, much as they have Lake Malawi as their main source of maritime activities. Therefore, Uganda is definitely an avenue that we need to explore more. And this is a challenge to you, Madam. Please reach out to us so that we can walk the journey better towards climate change mitigation in the shipping and maritime industry. So we'll have a talk after this for sure. The other question is with regard to elements of climate change mitigation in the shipping industry from Seychelles. Okay. Thank you very much. I needed to get a brief, comprehensive recap of the question so that I give the best answer. With regard to that question, for sure we are aware that we have the small island developing states in the African continent,
and the small island developing states as well are part of the International Maritime Organization. We have a very famous phrase right now in terms of climate change mitigation, which is to leave nobody behind. And we are definitely looking towards implementing the same. How can this be done? MTCC Africa has been rolling out pilot projects, and the said pilot projects have been having recommendations and results that are being put into the implementation phase. We are currently looking into elements as to how we can reach out to the small island developing states in terms of how they can directly implement the recommendations. One notable example that I can give is in terms of having the bankable pilot project, which is a new phrase in the industry, whereby the countries which are looking towards port expansion related to energy efficiency can have on board energy-related programs related to their GDPs and how this can be of value, while still at the same time looking at elements of the implementation of the MAPOL Convention through MAPOL Annex 6. The advantage is twofold. We are aware that most African countries, the revenue from the ports goes to the states. So the advantage is from the bankable pilot projects, we will have a partnership agreement. This will be the public-private partnerships. At the end of the results, the profits will definitely be plowed back into the port system. It will definitely help with the blue economy supply chain. In addition to this, we also need to ensure that the countries have ratified, not probably ensure, but encourage. We have to encourage the countries to ratify MAPOL Annex 6, as well as domesticate the same, because with domestication, puts into direct focus the key element of the convention, which is mostly Regulation 4, which looks at the technical elements. And the technical elements also ensure that when the port state control officers go on board the vessels, they are having a direct advantage as to how the states can benefit from vessels which are visiting their respective ports. Therefore, this is one of the ways that the small island developing states can get the support. In addition to this, we also have the main overarching agenda, which is through I will not speak for the IMO, but I can refer to what is currently going on. We also have the meetings where participants, but I'll say member states as well, participate in the Marine Environmental Protection Committees. States are encouraged to have a vocal role during these committees and highlight some of the challenges that they face. And directly related to that, this will also be brought on board by the technical committee. I can request a comment from the IMO team later on with regard to this, as to how they can support the small island developing states, not putting them on the spot, but I'm sure they have a comment or two with regard to that. The other part is with, I think I'll make a comment to a question which was raised on how to rope in success stories into educational institutions. What has Kenya done to support this? And speaking on behalf of the J.K. Watt University, we have been receiving a lot of support from the Kenya Maritime Authority, whereby they have been offering mentorship visits to the university, highlighting how best we can be at par with the international level of education in terms of marine training, what we need to consider, what we need to look out for. Therefore, this means that government is looking out for other government-affiliated institutions to ensure that the blue economy is promoted, at the same time build capacity for the students, and the angle would be governments to work together with institutions of higher learning. Thank you. I hope I've answered all the highlighted questions. I'm still available though.
Leaders has answered everything. What I can say as advice, you asked for advice. 2004, we didn't have maritime administration. So when it was set up, one of the key elements that was put in at its functional initiatives to undertake was to address maritime training. I believe in Uganda you must be having a maritime administration. If you don't, we are there to give you support. Our PS is well known for setting up such institutions as in consultancy in another life. So then, and we are also here, we have had a lot of interaction with how the systems work. So when you set a dedicated institution or administration that focuses on promoting the maritime sector, it's easier to manage those things and bring your issues to the policy attention. And then you set up to find out what does it take to do maritime training. What are the standards? What are the requirements and of IMO and all that? Uganda is a member of the IMO, so they are familiar with some of those provisions. And then build the capacities and see how best you can be able to move on with the agenda of bringing people to train in the maritime and pick it up and promote and create awareness. How we attracted the 18 who came in, some of them are looking at me. We offered them a job as a trainees. When we did the interview, they showed interest, and at that point we didn't have, so it was the initiative that was brought in by our then Director General, Nancy, who is here in the room, and we brought in mechatronics, mechanical engineers, very top qualified from the university. Good performance, and we went through a very thorough interview because we offered them a job as trainees. Nancy is here, she'll also comment on that. And then thereafter, we take them through thorough training program, very expensive indeed. But that seed that was planted is, we are now seeing the benefits, and we hope that they are going to generate more. And then in addition to that, we liaise with the universities to have a structured way of administering maritime training. And the sea time challenge that we have, we are seeing a lot of developments. And so then I don't want to take the words from her mouth. She's here. If you can also add something small on how did you attract the 18 into the maritime until now we see them in the room fully qualified. Maybe you have something to say on this. Manaulu.
Yes, somebody specifically wanted me to comment on maritime labor. You can hear me? Oh, yes. Yes. Now, taking over from what, or continuing with what John has said, getting in young people to train specifically in the maritime technical areas, that is the deck and engine, naval architect, was a deliberate, intentional plan by Kenya Maritime Authority then. Because here is a maritime administration, these are the skills you need. I think we did our first attempt at recruitment and we had 70-year-olds coming for the job. 75, eh? And you're wondering now, you recruit them and what do you do with them? You're even putting their lives in danger when you're asking them to go and climb ships. And we realized that the market didn't have this kind of talent, and therefore we had to make a deliberate, intentional program to develop such talent. And that's how we came up with a training plan, long-term, and then we had a long-term view in terms of not training for the authorities' structure, but training for the country. Because we said, the job of a maritime administration is not, the investment is better in terms of people, not in building, not in infrastructure, but in that capacity. And that's how we ended up with 18, I think there are more, 18 young people, because we said if they go and work for other areas in the industry in Kenya, even if they go into the export labor market, they're still to Kenya's benefit. And therefore, that was the investment, and I'm glad that you're seeing the fruits of that program. In terms of these two, there are more who have qualified. But I think this being a ladies, these are the ones who are available. There is some at sea. Yeah, there are others at sea who are ladies, but these are the ones who are on land for now. That's why they are the only two who came. But as you've heard, it was a deliberate program. Now, on maritime labor, I think Betty touched on it in terms of Uganda or landlocked countries also participating in maritime labor export. I think, I remember in my years in the maritime sector, Kenya has at times tapped into Uganda for maritime graduates, maritime professionals, Remember there was one time we had a Ugandan in charge of the terminal, or rather the port operations. So I know you train. Maybe they are not trained in Uganda, but I know you have a pool of qualified mariners. And you mentioned about, you challenged me when I used to set up maritime administrations. And I know Uganda was the last place I visited on an IMO mission to set up a maritime administration before I get into government, before I came to KMA. So we did the legislation, we did the advice on how to go about it. I think from what I gather recently, I think the legislation was passed, maybe not so long ago. Pardon? Last year. Yeah, so you are well on the path in terms of now putting in the structures, in institutional and legal, to ensure that your people have the support to train, qualify, get certificated, and also be able to get recruited. I hope that satisfies. Oh. Yes, I'm being reminded that Uganda also benefits from support from East Coast in terms of through the maritime administrations. So I could add that we are on hand as Kenya. We can walk the journey together because we are part of East Africa community, and of course we are obliged, or we are very ready to support you. Now, in terms of the labor support, there are IMO conventions like the SID. Maybe that would ease your labor, seafarer's identity document, because we realized that during COVID and during COVID pandemic, that was a very, very important document to enable easy transfer or easy travel by seafarers. So that's one of the considerations that you could make. But like I said, we are on hand to help with whatever you need to do. You just reach out to us. I'm okay? Betty wants to add.
Thank you. For addition for labor, I want to announce that Madam PS and the government of Kenya negotiate for the MSC, and it started with Kenya only, but now it has gone to Kenya and Tanzania for the shipping line, for the cruise ship. So MSC Kenya base under the Kenya government through Madam PS. Now from this year, they are taking Tanzanians and Ugandans, and is why it's very important for us, because they are going to pass through Kenya, and we want them not to go and spoil the program for us. And we are looking at the issue of the good conduct. We are asking the Uganda and Tanzania make sure those people goes on board those vessels with a good conduct. We are asking good seaman book, good documentation, because we know this project has started in Kenya for about 2 to 3 years. Now Uganda you are in, Tanzania you are in, and we like to work together. Thank you. Thank you, Madam PS. Thank you so much. I think that has been an informative session. I believe all the questions have been answered. I think there's one pressing issue. We can have the mic.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Lucy from Kenya Maritime Authority. Thank you, Lydia and Mr. Mingo, for a very informative session. My question will be maybe to both of you. As we implement some of the solutions to mitigate the climate change, how do we ensure that the cost of it does not affect the cost of doing business in these countries, and how does the government or maybe even MTCC Africa ensure that the cost does not affect the cost of goods coming to our shelves? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I would say that is the elephant in the room right now. So I will give a personal opinion, not related to MTCC or any affiliation I am with. We can base it on the market-based measures. Market-based measures in the sense that we need to consider some advantages and disadvantages that will be brought about from the economics perspective, tapping into economics law. When we look at the negative externalities and the positive externalities of the same, we could also put into consideration the elements of carbon trading. Carbon trading, looking at the quantity and price carbon trading considerations, whereby the private sector needs to work very closely with the IMO as well as the relevant governments to ensure that the same is implemented. But then again, these are discussions which are ongoing at the IMO and with international organizations related to shipping lines as well. And once again, it is a step in the right direction, trajectory, as we look into energy efficiency in the shipping and maritime industry, and to see how best that costs do not get inflated. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. In addition to the comments made by Lydia, I would also like to add a few comments of my own. Climate change is a global threat, so we all have to face it and try to mitigate it. That's a common threat we all face. But talking about the maritime sector, when we are discussing the greenhouse gases reduction in relation to the developing countries, LDCs and the least developed countries, basically we are talking about two aspects of this problem. First, the impact, the measures we are going to adopt to the developing countries, mostly Cs and LDCs, because they are the most vulnerable countries to be affected by the more stringent measures towards the industry. The second aspect is we need to think about is the challenge you faced as the maritime sector, especially we are, as developing countries, our fleet of maritime shipping is facing ferocious competitions around the world. And we need, as the rightly pointed out by our participants from Senegal, even with the current implementation of many new requirements under MAPO Annex 6, we will still need quite a big amount of capacity building, both in the human resource development and the institutional capacity building aspects. So IMO is well aware this challenge toward developing countries. That's why the technical cooperation program in this area is focusing both of these two aspects. For the impact of any measure that will be put on the developing countries, we need certain assessment of this impact and to find out the result and see how to deal with those impacts. Of course, at the very beginning, you have to have the basic data elements to address this research. And for the measures that will pose challenge to the maritime industry, I think, all the measures negotiated in the House of IMO is the product of the member states. So you need to have a balance between the ambition of the measures and the supporting initiatives for the developing countries. For instance, technical transfer, technical assistance, and technical cooperation. So that is what the MTCC currently is doing, and IMO other programs, for instance, the Green Voyage 2050 is aiming at. So I think the women are here. Today we ask many pertinent questions. I think you have a very deep understanding of the issue. So I wish in the future we can all work together to help IMO to achieve a better result of our initiatives of the greenhouse gas reduction strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Quite a rich discussion. I think most of our concerns have been addressed and the questions have been adequately answered. Oh, sorry. Madam Funmi has a comment.
A quick observation. Going down the line of training ships for training our cadets, of getting them sea time. Maybe at some other point we would have to discuss it. Our experience, and William and Nancy are here, when we started up the AAMA in South Africa, South Africa had that training vessel. It just didn't work out. Commercially, we have been told that African ship owners, we'd rather you train your cadets and give them sea time on commercial vessels rather than have the dedicated training vessel. We have so much numbers of cadets waiting for sea time in Africa that an advocate of a training vessel may not work just at this time. So I would later on wish to, if that opinion has changed, let's talk about it so that we look at what we're investing in. Is it commercial for purposes of carriage of goods and products, or the training vessels just for our cadets, the numbers of which are wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I'm not speaking for IMO, only just provide some additional information to you from the perspective of, I used to work for the China administration, and in China we have two major maritime training universities, and both of them have dedicated training vessels for cadets. But the operation of the vessel is not solely for training, because if you dedicate such a big vessel only for training purposes, it will cost tremendously. So the university also chartered the ship out to shipping companies. They can do the same, they can operate the ship in a commercial way while training the cadets, because the training ship is specialized, designed for accommodating many of the trainees on board the ship, while it can also carry out commercial business. Both of them are like that. So that's the maybe another way out for maintain a training vessel for the cadets.
Let me just supplement what the director has eloquently put together. It's common when we say provide us with a training vessel. It sounds, the real thing. That's the proper thing. But there is nothing like a training vessel in the real sense of it. All vessels trade. And if you're training cadets, what are you training them on? How to operate on a merchant ship. So they have to trade and then learn at the same time while the ship is also making money. If a big country like China, from what the director has said, cannot sustain a training vessel in a university, so what are we talking about? We can't. But the crux of it is that initial, that seed money, that impetus to start. You know, if a shipping company say, okay, we trade, every year we train 10 cadets on board our ships. That's what that is being asked for now. But if you expect KMA or NIMASA in Nigeria, you know, to buy a vessel for training, you know, first it doesn't even make economic sense to start with. We tried it when I was in the Nigerian administration, when it was National Maritime Authority before it was baptized to become a Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. We had a training vessel, MV Abuja. For me, we remember. We experimented with that. Even to fuel that vessel was a challenge, just to fuel the vessel. So it was converted immediately to merchant shipping, and then the cadets were trained on board. But of course, he went in through the legal, the lien was placed on it because he couldn't fulfill its obligations, and I think it was sold off. So we want to train, but let's be realistic. There's nothing like a training vessel, but there must be that private sector participation to work with government and institutions to provide berths for cadets to train on. So that's what we should be focusing. But no one can buy you a training vessel. Thanks.
I see the discussion is becoming more lively. Okay. No, Madam Fumi just reminded me, and then the two colleagues from the IMO, to my counterpart sisters from UNESA, from South African point of view in terms of a training vessel. I just want to say that it doesn't work. We tried both models in terms of the training and then in terms of the chartered voyages. Both of them, they are not financially sustainable or economically sustainable to sustain the maintenance, the fueling and everything else. So when we look into options of trying to empower young people, look for other things and then accept for the training vessel, it doesn't work. There is a model that we are also looking into in South Africa in terms of the national shipping company. I'm glad to see that at the KMA they are also looking into that one. I think it is the best way to look into, because then it empowers people and then young people to also look into ship vessel management as well as ownership. And then it goes back to the issue when we are saying that seafaring is not the only maritime career that we should look into. There are many other opportunities in the blue economy, of which ship management has got a whole lot of ripped down economic activities that you can look into. So training vessel, it does not work.
Hi, I was just going to add another point on this as well, on training vessels. This is also an example where you can do quite a lot with the CivMil interconnection. There are military vessels, Coast Guard vessels, where you do exercises, they are used for training, and sometimes it would be good to bring in and bring on board seafarers that are not military, but to work with the military to do some of the training jointly. And we certainly do that in the UK, and it's an area to explore, because the more you work together, the civilian and the military side, that can also help as well. So look into it, ask the question, you know, try it out and see what they say, what the navies or the Coast Guard say in your countries.
Thank you so much. I think Malawi wanted a vessel. I hope you're learning. If it was Malawi or Zambia? Zambia, yes. I hope you're learning from this. Okay. Any more reactions, Catherine? As we prepare for the next session, which will be by UNESA region. Yes. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of, besides working for the Maritime Administration, I'm also working for training institution in Kenya, which was recently established, to be a center of excellence in maritime education and training. And in this aspect, maritime education and training includes both the offshore and the land-based courses. We face the same challenge also in Kenya in terms of securing opportunities for seat time for the academy students. And what generally happened with the newly revived institution is that the board, through the leadership of the State Department of Shipping and Maritime, that is the Ambassador, Madam PS, they saw it fit to establish a specific department that would work towards securing opportunities for for students on board ships for seafaring courses, as well as students for on-land programs. So following the establishment of the structure with a department dedicated solely for advancement and placement of its students, once again, as you know her very well, the ambassador has pursued collaborative frameworks with various shipping lines, and one of them have recently we executed an agreement whereby they will take on board approximately between 4 to 8 seafarers, or student seafarers, trainees, who will go on board various vessels on commercial basis. They would go for their training and then they would come back. In addition, the academy intends also to establish facilities for simulation training. This would also assist in providing that opportunity for the trainees to be able to probably begin training using the simulation process before they get the opportunity to go on board a vessel. So these are just some of the strategies that we are also adopting, and we hope that in time we will be able to have most of our trainees trained fully. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Connie Charo from KPA, and I don't know where she works, but I suppose it's a BMA. Yeah, and I'm a beneficiary. My son did a diploma, and now he's undergoing training aboard an MSC ship through Madam PS. So it is workable, and it is happening. Thank you.
Thank you for that real life experience. I think we can all see now that most of these things are possible. And such sessions, I think the benefit of networking, we're able to learn from Kenya, from South Africa, so that the other member states that are also in the process of setting up, at least they're able to see what worked for other countries and what they can do to improve from the lessons learned. That has been quite an informative session. We would now like to move to the next session, which is the session on the WIMESA strategic plan and the consideration of program of activities for the year. I would like to invite Madam Fatma, or the representative of WIMESA region, to take that part. We have a presentation, I believe, ICT. You can bring up the presentation. Yes, we'd like to invite the relevant persons to come on the stage. Thank you, Mr. Omingo, and thank you, Lydia. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Be careful. Okay, so I'm informed this is an interactive session, and Madam Fatma here will take us through using the presentation, but we would like to invite comments from all the participants, so that then WIMESA region can have the public participation as far as the strategic plan and the activities for the year are concerned. Madam Fatma, over to you.
all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session, basically, we are looking at how we are going to determine a program of action. The last time we had such a initiative was way back in 2018 in Antananarivo. I don't know whether I pronounced it correctly. I am cognizant of the fact that I'm fairly disadvantaged given that I'm speaking after very eloquent speakers. Number two, I am standing between your lunch and a trip to Dunga, so that's another disadvantage. So because of that, the presentation prepared is very, very short, basically just to jog our minds a bit and to be able to discuss the way forward. So we are not in any way trying to discuss or trying to review the strategic plan, but rather we are taking advantage of our being here to bring to our hearts and minds together to put together a program of action for the next 12 months. The last time we had one such was 2018 under the old strategic plan and under a new constitution. I know you are all very aware that we did review our constitution and we got 100% support from IMO and in particular Mr. Azu. So we're able to review the strategic plan and come up with a new constitution, which I believe was shared throughout the national chapters. So here are some brief notes that should throw some light and facilitate us in navigating the way forward. Basically, what we'll be doing is, at the end of this very short presentation, we shall be identifying the activities that we want to run with, the time frames, the resources, and probably the responsibility. Why will we emphasize so much on responsibility? Because from experience, we all know that we does not do anything. Unless you zero down to who actually is going to take action, anything that is usually left at we level remains at we and never gets to see the light of day. So now, can I get on to the first presentation? Due to circumstances beyond our control, WAMESA's Governing Council, the strategic plan of the 2014-2019 was not fully implemented. And some of the challenges that impacted negatively on the implementation of the strategic plan include the following. First, we are constrained financially, so there was lack of financial and human resources. You know that our organization is run purely what lawyers, if I'm not mistaken, pro bono. So that is a big constraint. Two, we did not have effective and responsive organizational structures, then followed by weak and inefficient administrative support to effectively review the strategic plan. And then also lack of a scorecard in the strategic plan. Now, because of these weaknesses that we identified in the last strategic plan and the constitution, the new strategic plan and the constitution tried to address some of these issues. Next slide. Okay. Now, this is the program of action that was determined in Antananarivo in Madagascar from between the 26th and 28th September 2018. The first thing that we identified was capacity building, and WAMESA was to seek more training opportunities for its members, taking into consideration best practice obtaining in industry. The conference also recommended that members should get at least a minimum of 5 days training per each calendar year for each member. And the topics and programs apart from the technical, because the technical courses usually they are well endowed and fairly accessible. But when it comes to these other ones that develop, make you into a whole person, you know, these are the ones that are sometimes missing. So we have proposed that our members needed to be trained in leadership skills, to be trained in public speaking, to be trained in gender mainstreaming, because then how will we be able to interrogate policies at our workplace if we ourselves are not well informed in terms of gender mainstreaming, and related capacity building programs aimed at empowering women. The next. So also, those ones were to be given priority. But as I said, technical trainings in marine engineering, nautical science, piloting, and related technical courses for career development in mainstream, in mainstream maritime sector. Because we realized in the maritime sector, in the other areas, we are fairly well, in the support functions, we are fairly well represented. But that is not where we want to be. We want to be where? Yes. So that's why you also had my president say, you know, right from the fisher folks, right through to the steering wheel, we want to be there. The chair of the governing council was to provide guidance on a baseline survey to be conducted aimed at establishing levels of competencies. The Kenya chapter was requested to facilitate an IT access program within a month. I know my chair is looking at me because this was supposed to be her baby, but when we get there, she will comment. Gender policies. As members, we were to lobby for the implementation and operationalization of the gender policies in workplaces. A panel of lawyers who included Johan, Andrea. This is what I was saying earlier. When we were doing the program of action, we actually put names because we were cognizant of the fact that we can be difficult. So Andrea from Madagascar, there was Miali also from Madagascar, and Mirail, there was Sandra, we had Madam Anene. That time she was not president, now she is. We had Helen Bani. The voter is also in the room. Anushka is not here. Veronica Maina. So this was the group that was constituted to work with Madagascar, Somalia, and Mozambique to facilitate. The reason why I had carried my, it's not because I was expecting a call. I thought I was going to have the same challenges that Mr. Omingo had. So I thought if I will be unable to read there, because as you notice, I too don't have my glasses. So I had said I will carry this one where, because these days I'm a bit short-sighted, so that I'll be able to, yeah. So the reason why I carried was not because I was expecting a call, but because I thought I would be challenged. You remember Mr. Omingo expressed a challenge, so I thought I would come prepared, but now it has ended up putting me in a rather awkward position. So let us continue to the next. Exchange programs. We also talked of benchmarking. We talked of peer-to-peer review to facilitate appreciation and adoption of best practices amongst peers, i.e. national chapters. So if something has worked, and yesterday none other than Mr. Azu challenged us to copy and paste. The only thing was supposed to leave out were the dates. The conference also identified some centers of excellence for benchmarking, which included these institutions, our very own institutions, the South African Maritime Training Capacity, the Arab Academy for Science, Technology, Maritime Transport, and the Dar es Salaam Maritime Institute. It's not an exhaustive list, but we had said we will start with our very own institutions. Resource mobilization and funding. This is one thing that has been a challenge. Of course, we are cognizant of the immense support that we have enjoyed from IMO and from other sponsors, from our own employers, etc. But we are still having a problem. So we thought that we could challenge each chapter to at least organize some sort of event, you know, for purposes of fundraising. And then subscription is also a thorny issue. People register, after that, getting them to pay, you know, I don't know whether we should employ the same tactics that revenue authorities apply when it comes to debt collection. That will come from you. Each chapter was to establish a committee also for resource mobilization. Can we get on to that? Then number 5, each chapter was required to establish fully functional secretariats, possibly with physical office and space. Visibility. Number 6 was visibility. National chapters were also required to organize activities that would enhance WOMESA's visibility profile through stakeholder engagement. These stakeholder engagements include sensitization of both the public and the private sector about our existence, about what we expect, how we expect to interact with them, etc. Then seeking collaboration with relevant government departments for support in the implementation of the WOMESA agenda. Of course, we are very cognizant of the fact that we do not operate in a vacuum, and that unless we have a coordinated approach, we might not realize the objectives for which we have spent a lot of time trying to determine. And then we were to link up WOMESA's website with IMO's. Next, the creation of websites, and each chapter, we were to create, each national chapter was to have their own website. Then inviting media, like you can see what we have done here, inviting the media to cover all activities with the aim of inculcating a good reputation and of course enhancing visibility. Efforts should also be made to produce suitable content for the media. Each chapter was also challenged to buy a good camera so that they can take nice photographs, high resolution photographs, which can be placed in websites or can even be used by the media. And then linking up the Maritime Administration communication departments to facilitate and mobilize access to media coverage. Like for this particular function, we have relied totally and heavily on the communication department of Kenya Maritime Authority. Let's go ahead. Okay. Gender-based violence, number 7, was to deliberate on efforts made to enlist the support of men to challenge violence against women and girls. And the activities were to include the Ribbon Day for GBV, which we celebrated in the year 2018 on November 5th. But then after that, I am not sure whether there were any more celebrations. But we are all here. We will have time to comment on that. And then we were to include GBV policies in collective agreements. We are going to lobby for that, to include GBV policy in collective agreements of shipping lines and seafarers. Kenya and Ethiopia were to spearhead this particular initiative. Then number 8 was enhanced mentorship program. We were to seek to engage role models who have made a breakthrough in the mainstream maritime sector, e.g. ship captains, maritime engineers, and other high-profile female seafarer personalities. Each chapter was to endeavor to visit girls' schools, fisherwomen, internally displaced persons, etc., to preach. National chapters were to identify what is peculiar to their country and determine a suitable program of action. Each chapter was to endeavor to enlist the support of outstanding successful women in the maritime sector to indulge as role models. Unfortunately, where is Nancy? I hope she's hearing this. Okay. Number 9, observer status. Mr. Zhang, Mr. Captain Muli, and Mr. Azu, please listen to this. It's very important. Okay. Observer status in ILO, IMO. WOMESA was to work on strategies that would lead it to eventually earn an observer status in ILO, IMO, and other. IGOs are international government organizations, and those are international non-governmental organizations. But first, see where we started. Then, besides that, we said women, WOMESA should also endeavor to participate and lead gender discussions during ILO and IMO meetings. And then we will also endeavor to effectively engender the work environment, including infrastructure. You heard some of our members say that these days the conveniences have improved in the ships and what have you. So probably it's the noise that we are making that now we even have mirrors there. Cruise ships. Now, land-linked